was 7 years older than Jack, 7.5 years older than him, so I was his big sister. He loved boating and fishing. My dad has a little fishing boat, so they'd go fishing all the time. He was always with his twin, Charlie. So they did everything together growing up. So one day my mom's looking for the boys. They were about maybe 2. And she went down to where their swing set was, where she figured they would be, and they were. They were in the right place, doing the wrong thing.
And I'm washing my dishes, and I see these flames come up in their backyard. What? And I go running out there, and they had a fire going.
And, I mean, things like that just always kind of were the norm growing up with them. His passion, I think, above everything else was playing soccer, which he did since he was probably 3. And he played soccer up until high school for the varsity team, and travel soccer and club soccer. He was just kind of playing year-round.
Because when we went to the dollar store, we had fun at the dollar store.
Don't talk about that.
Why? How is that not a good memory? He would give us like pump-up speeches and stuff in 7th and 8th grade before we played. Like, it just sort of weird for like for a player to be giving the speeches instead of the coach.
Going into our freshman year, maybe for the season, he had like a strict diet, and I remember he like rewarded himself on some apple juice, cold apple juice. This is a really strict diet. He was always very serious about the game.
He had gone out that night, we knew, because he left my parents' house, and he went to a fireworks display. And, he said goodbye to my parents as he left. He said, I'm, going to Mashpee High School, meeting some friends there. It was a Friday night, and I was actually on the North Shore in Beverly I was in one of my best friends from college, her wedding, when Mike, who is now my husband, got a call from my mom. She had called Mike and told him that Jack had been in an accident. We're going to bed, and he was like, I gotta tell you something. He said, your brother was hit by a car. We didn't know where he'd been flown. We did know he was med-flighted to a Boston hospital, but because he had no ID, he wasn't driving, he didn't have a license. They couldn't identify him, and so my parents ended up just calling all the Boston hospitals. So they finally found him at Mass General, which is when my mom called us again to say, look, we gotta meet there. No one knew anything. We couldn't see him. Doctors and nurses just kept checking on us. So early that morning, maybe starting at like 6 a.m., get taken into very small conference rooms with neurologists, nurses, doctors, surgeons, anyone who was going to be dealing with Jack's case, and them trying to explain what was going on. All I was thinking, I'm like, okay, bottom line, is he gonna live? Is he gonna live? Is he gonna live? And that's all I kept thinking, and no one was telling us that, because they didn't know. I remember just sitting with Jack, by the side of his bed. He was not awake. and he just was hooked up to every imaginable machine out of every imaginable place in your body.
I had woke up at one point and my husband was holding his hand and he was on the floor just holding his hand and, kissing him and saying, "Wake up, Jack, wake up, wake up." And my husband's such a strong kind of guy, and I just remember that so much. And at one point, he squeezed my husband's hand, and then we all just, squeeze my hand, and the doctors were like, "No, that was just like some kind of impulse or something." We're like, no, he's coming back, and they kept saying, no, he's not.
At some point on Sunday, they brought us into that small little claustrophobic conference room again, and this time it was with all the same cast of characters, and then there was new people that were from the organ bank. They ended up introducing the topic of, one, he isn't going to make it, two, what do you want to do now? And neither of those were things that we still were not in any shape prepared to be discussing or even considering, really. We kind of hashed it out, and we decided that despite how kind of inhumane it is for them to harvest organs, that if Jack was not going to be with us, we wanted to make sure that whatever part of him could be in this world would be in this world. That morning, they were harvesting his organs, and the process is basically that you have to be kept on your ventilator, you have to keep oxygen flowing through you so that your organs are still viable. And so at some point, once they are ready to get your heart or to get your lungs, they cut that oxygen off to it. Well, they cut the oxygen off, and Jack's heart just kept going and going. And there was some monitoring of how much oxygen it's actually getting at each point. And they were just like astonished, because without any oxygen on its own, his heart was just still beating. And so that process took a lot longer than it was supposed to.
It was 4th of July, and we walked out of the hospital, and we hadn't got out of the hospital since Friday, and the sun was shining, and people were riding their bikes and having picnics, and it was just like, it was so strange. We're like, wait a minute, our baby just died, and that's when we realized, life goes on. This is just, our story, but that was just surreal. That coming out of the hospital that day, it was kind of a shock.
Well, this was Jack's bed, his bedroom. I don't come in here very much. I don't come in here at all because it's just too painful. This is pretty much how it was when he left. He got his soccer shirt there, his most prized possession when he made varsity. That was just like his biggest, happiest day. He got his hand, the hospital, they made his handprint for us. That's what I'm left with, my son's handprint. You have all these things and you find them, and you go through a drawer and he just shatters you all over again. You don't get over it. It just kind of numbs you, I guess.
We knew we didn't want a funeral or a wake or anything like that. So there was specific people from the Falmouth Soccer Club that kind of grabbed the reins and just organized this big community like celebration down at Trotting Park Fields.
We just wanted it to be uplifting, and just kids were playing soccer, and all even little kids came in their soccer uniforms, and big kids, they directed traffic, and people kept bringing food and water. We had music. It was just beautiful. It just made us feel so good, and people we hadn't seen in years and years came. People we didn't even know came.
We had just seen at that celebration of life some sort of energy was there, and we wanted to kind of encapsulate it and do something with it more than just leave that day and have that be it. And one of his coaches used to always say, "Run, Jack, run!" And that came to my mom's head. That kind of got rolling with this memorial run that she wanted to do the following year. So we had our first Run, Jack, Run, which is a family fun run and walk from one of his soccer fields at Falmouth High School down to Trotting Park Fields, where his other soccer field was, where the celebration ceremony took place. And basically the point was to remember Jack. That's the biggest thing. And then the second thing was just making sure that we were getting the word out about drunk driving. And that became more and more kind of at the forefront of what we felt was important in keeping Jack's memory alive. We come together, we meet regularly, and basically come up with ideas, programs, ways to get the message out about not drinking and driving, risky behaviors in general surrounding substance abuse. Another core piece of Jack's Pact is an actual book. Should I get the book?
Not at this point.
Okay. The pact is two meanings, so it stands for Positive Alternatives for Community and Teens. That's kind of what we're trying to do. But PACT, pact, is also this promise that we are collecting signatures just all the time of people that are committing to not drink and drive or drug and drive.
Knowing that the main audience for this film is probably going to be kids that are taking driver's ed classes, kids that are just starting to form their driving habits and taking on that huge responsibility of being somebody that's going to be behind the wheel of a car. As far as what your family's gone through, what do you think is the most important thing to say to them?
Just don't drink and drive. It's not worth it. If you don't hurt you, you sure can hurt somebody else, and then you gotta live with that too.
I guess just hope Jack's legacy lives on and people make smart decisions if they're gonna drink to not drive, and to give it all they got on the soccer field.
Yeah, and I think it's important to give like healthy alternatives to drinking and doing drugs, and I think Jack's Pack has done a really good job of that. Because this is a community thing. It's not just about drinking and driving. It's about getting everyone involved, and I think that's something that Jack would have liked to be remembered as.